is an opportunity and a gift. My guest today loves adventure, learning, and helping others think so that they can create what's possible. Her three vastly different careers in the airlines, in business development, and finally in her own coaching business demonstrate her desire to work with people and help them uncover their courage and leadership. Hello and welcome to Season 5 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia to help you as you navigate your own business journey. This episode is brought to you by Redbox Studio. If you want to be kept updated on new episodes, join my email list that you can find on womenpreneurasia.com. Now, today's episode is with an entrepreneur from India, Farah Ismail. She is the founder of Interact Consulting and calls herself a courage catalyst, coach, facilitator, and speaker. We spoke about seeing gifts in the adversity that life throws at us and having a sense of adventure in our lives. Farah also encouraged women to own their own voices and express themselves fully. As a coach, Farah's desire is to make a difference in people's lives, continuously growing as she develops others. She spoke about choosing oneself and being courageous to set our own agenda, and here's what I like the most: factor playfulness in our agenda. This episode will offer you quite a few things to reflect on, and I hope that you will enjoy today's episode. So let's get started. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia, Farah.
Thank you. Thank you, Krista. It's lovely to be here.
So Farah, where are you today?
Today I'm in my beautiful home city, Bangalore, south of India.
And what is unique about Bangalore for those who don't know Bangalore?
So it's a place where you would always find some incredible weather. And so that attracts people from all over India to come and stay here. And then, of course, it means we have more traffic, more people. But yes, I think it's the people and the weather that really make our city so unique. But mostly, Bangalore is known for this beautiful climate and beautiful people.
And have you always been living in Bangalore?
Yes, I was born and raised here. I studied here most of the time, and I call this my home.
And where would other places be home for you, if not Bangalore?
Other places would be, I think, where the rest of my family is. So when I go for a trip to London, I would still say, I'm going home. If I go to Hong Kong, I say, I'm going home because that's where my family lives. And so, yeah, I make it my home when I get there.
Perhaps now is a good time for you to let us know, what do you do?
What do I do? Okay, one thing is I do a lot of things because I'm the kind of person who believes that one life, so why not live it meaningfully? So as far as professionally, I'm a women's leadership coach and also a facilitator. And so a lot of work that I do is in the space of transforming leadership and building courageous leaders. And that's the space that I've been in for a while. And of course, I'm in love with facilitation. So what I do is I use facilitation and coaching to help people to do their best thinking or to move from where they are to where they want to go and just unlock courage and reimagine their lives. So that's, in short, what I enjoy doing at this moment.
And when did you get into this coaching and facilitation space?
Oh my God. Okay, so this will take you back to probably give you an indication of how old I am. But of course, I think I want to say that I'm absolutely young at heart. 21 till I die is what I normally tell everyone. But I think I fell into this space. It's like my third major career where I chose to move into training, facilitation, and coaching. And it's been a journey for the last, say, 20 years and 20 plus years. And that's the space I've been the longest in any career.
What made you go into this space? Because you say this is your third career, right? So I'm sure we'll talk about the first two careers later. But what really put you in this decision mode to say, I'm going to do this for this moment in my life?
Sometimes you find that naturally you gravitate towards something. And I guess learning is a big part of my life. It's about growing myself and learning. And so while I was doing that, I noticed that I was really getting inspired by some amazing facilitators, coaches, etc. And also the fact that the biggest power is within people. And so when I felt that I had the ability to transform myself with various ways that I did that, that's a space that I thought would really give me a lot of meaning and purpose. So that's how I walked into that area. And I walked into it, of course, without any previous experience or a certification or training. A lot of people asked me, and I think it was just my pure intention of, yeah, to know that I can make a difference in someone's life. And of course, using after that, building my capabilities of building my skills and my knowledge in this space. And of course, the various modalities that I use now to help people transform their lives. So I think that it started from there when I fell into this space of doing what worked for me. And then, of course, I started growing in this space because it's not something you can stay static. It's a place where you can continue to go in this path which excites you. So, when I started with cross cultural competence, because I used to live and work overseas, and my mind had shifted and expanded so much, and my vision had changed because of the exposure, that I was able to do work in culture. And then as I went along, I got fascinated by other aspects of leadership. And that's how I started doing interesting work in within myself. And that took me to Brené's work and doing a lot of work on courage. And so this whole journey has been, sounds like a very long time, but it's been fascinating for me because it's been um, taking me into places that I really feel inspired, and then learning there and building some mastery, and then helping others to experience that. So it's been very exciting. And I think the reason why I'm doing this for so long is because I'm continuously growing as well as helping others grow.
And what gives you the most joy from this?
I think it gives me the joy of just knowing that, when a group tells me that they've probably never had a conversation like that before, or they've never had been able to think like that, that's something that really, when I'm working with groups and when I'm working with individuals, is just seeing those tiny shifts, those small acts of courage that people choose to take, and then what happens after that. And so the possibilities of what we can do if we choose to or we make a decision is what really excites me. And I think I get very inspired by others as well for choosing themselves, for choosing themselves today, not tomorrow, doing it today. So I think it inspires me when I see people taking ownership, experimenting, stepping outside their comfort zone, and experiencing some incredible changes.
And who do you predominantly work with these days?
So these days, I work with women leaders, and that's who I serve as far as when we're looking at coaching. However, another part of my business is working with organizations, helping them to build their leadership, their teams to build senior leaders to build their leadership talent. So I do have a focus towards women leaders, yeah.
Walk me through a typical day, if there is a typical day in the life of Farah.
I love that question because I wish I had a typical day, and it makes me think about what my day would look like. And typically, my day is pretty set for the next probably 6 months. On certain days, I'm coaching, and I usually use that time for coaching. On certain days, I'm looking at building my knowledge, and I'm reading, I'm learning new things, I'm attending some sessions that inspire me, like I did this morning. So it's really about opening my mind and allowing the creativity to be part of me. So a mix of engaging with community, looking at ways in which I can connect with my clients, seeing how I can add value. Today, it's a lot. Yeah, that's a place where I have to really do a lot more work, which is adding some value on public spaces like social media. So trying to work on that as well. But the exciting thing is saying yes to projects that excite me. Like there's an upcoming summit that I helped curate, and I'm also speaking. So I think my typical day would be joyful. It would be not necessarily a 9 to 5, which is something that I chose since the pandemic, since the since the world became we started working across the world virtually. I decided that I'm really going to be having some blocks of time during the day that will help me nurture myself and energize me or take a pause. But otherwise, I do have a schedule where I'm sometimes talking to someone from across the world at a later part of the day. So I'm pretty happy with the fact that I've made that choice, and it might be like this for a little longer. So I think it's all about choices. It's what we choose to do, and yeah, I'm quite excited that my day looks like this. My weekend is for family and friends. So yeah, pretty balanced in many ways. You made me
And
think.
so,
So I went through that
yeah,
whole motion of what does it look like. So yeah, you made me go through it. Yeah, thanks.
yeah, because sometimes we don't realize how interesting other people's lives are, typical or not typical.
Yes, yes, I agree. I
We
agree.
often think that one has a life like us, but not everyone has a life like that. So
Hmm.
I'm not a coach, so I do not know what a coach's life looks like. So that's
Hmm.
where I think, well, wouldn't it be interesting to know what goes on in Farah's daily life? Although it may not be the same day to day, but at least we know there are certain parts of your life which is really your life, and you worked
Yeah,
your business around your life.
absolutely agree. And I think there's one thing I didn't mention, that another new piece of my agenda, what my how I set my own agenda, is exactly what we're doing now. So another way in which I like to share a bit of my thinking and what drives me and how I can serve others is through opportunities to speak at such amazing platforms like yours. And another part of my day, not typical day, but usually in the week, I have earmarked for conversations with the people I really want to connect or collaborate with. So it could be a podcast, it could be a collaboration opportunity, it could be something really different. And I was part of a networking group, and I found that really amazing. It was called the best 90 minutes of your life. And so I would say yes to that because that excites me. I'm meeting new people, etc. So a lot of that comes from my sense of wanting playfulness in my agenda. The fact that don't want to be doing the same thing. So there's the sense of play, the sense of trying new things, and that keeps me feeling like 21, of course.
And that also brings us to your MBA, which I would
Yes.
love to talk about your MBA.
Oh
So
my
tell
God.
tell us about your MBA, Farah.
So I was one of these youngsters who dreamt of studying in America, and I did everything to go there. Unfortunately, I don't think it was in my destiny to do my MBA in America. And so, of course, I took a different path in my life then. And then, of course, there's lifelong learning happening. And then I had an opportunity to do an MBA in 2017. There was a friend who put out a really interesting, I think, like a little, I don't know if it was called an advertisement, but a small little post on social media asking women over 40 who were interested in doing their MBA. And it was a different type of MBA, and this was Masters in Beginners of Adventure. And so it was a trek. So we had to write why we should be chosen to be on that trek. And of course, the moment I read that, my light bulb went on. I felt excited. I was this really, I said, I must write this. And so I realized I do a lot of these interesting things. So I wrote about why I should be there. And then I was chosen. So here is an opportunity for me to go and experience a different MBA. And of course, I learned a lot on that on that trek. But that's something that I feel very proud of because I got a certificate that I am an MBA, but an adventure.
And how long was that trek?
This trek was so interesting that I went for a few days and it was filled with adventure. I was so excited to meet my friend and her daughter that I was in the airport and they were I had to take two flights to head there. And I'm walking around the airport looking for a gift for her child, and I didn't realize it was an airport without any announcements. And so I go to my gate and I realize that the flight is almost taking off and they had offloaded my bags. So here I am standing there thinking, oh my God, is this a sign? Is this telling me not to go? So I went through all those motions and then I realized that it was a really big effort. One is to try and book another flight, and what would I have missed? I think it took me a few seconds, Krista, to think about, should I go back home or should I venture into taking this new journey of finding a way to get there? And so I chose the latter, and finally managed to reach this place much later in the evening, feeling like I was at a disadvantage because I was going for my first trek. I was arriving in the night. People would have been asleep in the camp. So you can imagine how I was feeling. And I had this beautiful vision of how this friend had announced this trek. She had said it's a beautiful place where, a valley of flowers, and it's the easy on a scale, it's an easy trek. And so instantly I'm very visual, and I believed this was this most easy thing that I was going for, and I would just climb up a little hill and experience living under the sky and stuff like that. Finally, through all this journey that I went with really being stuck on route, I reached there and realized that it was a really tough trek and what I experienced, and it was hard for me, but it was a very interesting experience. So in those 4 days, I think we did a lot of interesting stuff besides rafting in icy waters, going up this mountain, experiencing living under the stars, eating, living in a tent, and really making some amazing connections. And I think I learned a lot about myself. Even till today, I constantly think about this fear that I had while I was sitting in that car being driven across this valley, and I saw some landslides ahead of me, and all I was thinking was, what am I doing here? I have a family. I should be home. How did I even say yes to this? And this whole knot in my stomach and saying, I can't even turn back now. So I want to say that it was frightening, and I think a lot about when that experience, I think about other moments in my life when I felt that sense of fear. And then I have chosen to take that step, to take the tiny step and see what is in store for me without taking unnecessary risks. So I take a lot of risks, but it's not the reckless ones. So I think that's a little bit about my trek. And I'm so proud that I did that in 2017. Of course, I did say that I'm never going on a trek again. So easy for us to say that. But then, of course, I thought about it. And I think these are places where we have the best learning about ourselves, how we think, what we believe in, and also a place where we can get rid of, just leave all these things that don't serve us. So I think I left a lot on that mountain, things that didn't serve me, and I came back to really take on and do a really interesting stuff after that.
And would you go on another trek again?
Actually, there's a very interesting announcement I'll make very soon, but I'm not able to do that officially. But same friend and I are talking about creating an experience for women to actually go on, to have an experience which is as unique as the one that I had. So that's something that we are currently going to be speaking about. So I hope I can
really
announce that
wonderful.
sometime. Yes,
That sounds wonderful.
I know. Yeah. So never say never. Okay.
Yes, never say never.
Yeah.
But you got your MBA anyway, so
I got
that's
my
the
MBA.
cool part.
I think I got my MBA not just with that trek. I find that throughout my life, I think there's so much learning around us. There's so many new, different ways that you can learn and grow. And so I find that I'm constantly becoming getting double degrees or getting my PhD in something. And so building mastery in something. Life is beautiful. It gives us so many opportunities to learn and grow and learn from each other, learn from experiences. So I'm just fortunate that I have, that type of thinking, and I call that I'm excited to have adventures. I like to create that in my life. So I love that.
Yeah. And so probably now is a good time to get back into the first two careers of your life to see how that gives us that transition into what you're doing right now, which I think also plays into the idea of adventure and courage.
I know, actually, when I think back, so it's been a very interesting life. So I did talk about not being able to do my MBA in America. And so my first career was in some ways to really deal with that disappointment. I know it sounds easy to say that, but in many ways, I was doing stuff here. I was working somewhere in a company, but I was still dreaming of going and experiencing the world. And then there was this beautiful opportunity to join an airline. And so this is the airline that I joined, and this is Saudi Arabian Airlines. It was an experience which I think has been the most pivotal for me, most pivotal. It shaped my thinking, enhanced my vision. I was able to really become a global Indian, and of course, the opportunity to experience the world and live and work in different countries and really get to know people was amazing. So that career has been, I think, very exciting. I have such fond memories of moments and stories on the airline. And of course, it was not very long that I stayed there. I didn't stay for, I stayed for less than 5 years. And I think my second career was when I came back to India. And when I came back to India, I had, as I said, I had expanded my vision. I continued learning and growing, and I'm always dealing with people. And then I was thinking about what am I going to do now? How can I actually continue building my career? So I had an opportunity to be part of a software company. I was handling their business development for the Asia Pac region. And it was lovely to start small, where we started in the team, it was like a small team who grew into a huge organization. So I was excited to be part of that foundational team. And then we witness also this large space that we created and be part of that. So that was the second career. And they were also distinct and different. But I think when I think of what really connected all of them, there was this thing about me, I think this thing of adventure for me when I think about my trek. And I think there's this sense of adventure, which is really about believing that when I try something different, there's a lot of hope, and I have this optimism that I bring to the things that I do, and I believe that I can make it, that's a new space to enter, and it's a new space to experience. So I think how I enter these spaces is with very little fear. What if it's a brand new place? I don't have this experience. I've not been in this. So, three big careers, all three distinct. And what really was the connecting factor are the people. So, even when I moved from there to training and facilitation, that there's this whole thing of really the people that I interacted with and I connected with. And I think just knowing that whatever you do, you're actually looking at the human capital, and that's the core, working with humans. And so I guess the third career happened because I was looking for a way in which I can add and make a difference. And so just getting inspired. So sometimes I think my entire life has taken this path of inspiration and a little risk of, I'd like to go there. So not worrying about should I do it or should I not. So a lot of those decisions have come from this space of courage and hope. Yeah.
I see that you have a lot of optimism and this lack of fear, if I can call it that, in trying or attempting new things in life, be it a career or being starting your business. What would be your advice to those people who perhaps are a little bit intimidated by new things? How do they overcome that feeling? Perhaps you are innately optimistic. So you have like belief, but there are people who may not. And what would be your response towards helping them
So
through?
thank you, Krista. I think first thing I want to say is, of course, I'm not fearless. Firstly, I want to tell you this. I did at one time believe that I was fearless. Once I was able to deal with really big roller coasters in my life, and I would say, I'm fearless, Farah. But that's not true. When you actually tap into yourself, you know that there are so many situations that really your ground will just completely vanish when you're trying something new. So I'm not fearless, but I think I like to try new things, and I'm not very attached to the outcome, whether I'm going to fail, whether I'm going to excel. I think it doesn't come from there. It comes from this excitement of walking a new path and bringing in some of my own experiences to it, and so what it could become. So typically I like to think that when I walk into something, I'm looking at making it so it's going to exponentially change. So I think it's not coming out of the fact that it's a lack of fear. It's just the excitement of seeing how can I make it refreshingly different, or I can experience something that in my lifetime I want to. So there's lots of things I want to do in my lifetime, right? So I feel that my life is, my God, I've so much time has passed. There's so many things I want to do to create a legacy, to make a difference. So I think that's what drives me, and it's not about fear or the fact that I don't. Yeah, it's not the being fearless. But if I had to say, if somebody's trying to look at doing something for the first time, is that what you were saying? Trying
Yes,
something new?
trying something or embarking on something for the first time.
When I'm trying to do something for the first time, I'm the way in which I move into that space is just looking at that tiny step that I'm taking in it. When I'm looking at something new, I can look at it like this big mountain that I'm going to climb. And I think when I look back at that trek, that mountain, when I actually looked at it, did look very looming, and it was huge. It was like I'm going climbing Mount Everest without any training. And so, of course, all my self doubt and my inner critic will really stop me from doing it. And I think for me, when I'm able to try something new, is when I stop looking at it like that and I look at it like it's part of my journey, and that every little step is what takes me on that journey, having the destination in mind, but not making it like an unbelievable target. So that's really something that I think in my mind I'm able to shift that. That's one thing that I do, I think.
Are you a big planner?
Big planner.
Do you plan? Because I know there are some people who will plan everything and make sure everything is written down somewhere. Plan A, plan B, or even plan C, if there's possibly a plan C.
I have a mix of two. I'm very intuitive. So I would do things based on my intuition, and I would be, yeah, it would be something. I don't think it's the word intuition. I also am in the moment when you make a decision. What's that word?
Not
So
impulsive, right?
impulsive. Yeah. Actually, I was going to say that. There are times a lot of my decisions are made on intuition and impulse. And I find that when I follow that, a combination of that, not just impulse, that I've actually listened to myself and what's at my core. Um, while on the other hand, so I have this balance, and there are times when I'm very adventurous and very creative when I think like that. But I also have another side, which, oh my God, I want to beat myself up for that, and I want to fool myself and say I'm not that. So I like to plan. I might not have plan C or plan B, but I do have a plan. I have quite a clear plan in place. The only thing is I'm not attached to it. So I have a plan. I have a plan which will probably be written down as well. And but I'm not 100% attached to it. So I'm willing to see whether I have to go left or probably go over it or under it to go there. So it's not this foolproof, only straight road or only this path. So it could be multiple ways to get to my destination.
So you're adaptive.
Yes, I think so. I think I'm pretty adaptive, and I think the time when I'm at my worst is when I'm stuck to this plan and I'm not able to think or go beyond, and I'm just so attached. So I know when I'm not aligned to this whole thinking of bringing that in. I've had instances when I've just not moved in a design when I'm trying to design something. My mind is not taking me anywhere because I was so attached to that plan. But when I'm step away from it and I start getting into nature, I'm also very creative, and so I would start doodling, etc. And that's when I bring that creative side back. That's sometimes a dilemma that I have between these two. So I'm not this or that, I'm this and that. I was looking at how I make decisions and how I think. So it's really about my inner way of my inner GPS, my compass. This is how my compass works. So I'm pretty aligned to this. So one is I'm able to choose to follow a path, but when I'm too attached to it, that's when I need to get back into my creative and my intuitive thinking. So it's a mix of that. It's how I think, how I work, how I design, how I create my programs. So it's a lot to do that. And how I show up in a room, how I show up with a client as well. So I'm not attached. You're right. Now that you made me think about how it impacts the way I work with others. It's not my agenda. It's not about me. It's about you. And I think when it becomes about you or it becomes about your outcomes, then is when there's misalignment.
You've had great career experience, you've coached women, you're in the leadership space. Are there some topics or things that women should talk about, but perhaps don't talk enough about?
I think one of the patterns that I'm noticing in the conversations that I'm having has been around things that really sabotage you and going deeper to think about where it's coming from, because a lot of conversations happen, everybody's looking at how do I do this, tell me how. And so really looking for the quick outcomes and for really looking for actions. But the core of coaching, the core of facilitation and helping people look at how they think, look at their beliefs, look at where this belief is coming from, and being able to look at how is it showing up? Is it a pattern? Is it something that you notice in various aspects of your life or just at work? So, a lot of conversations that are avoided is looking at the deeper aspect of why we do what we do. And I think people don't want to go to that depth. And I think when people are able to go deeper and look at this, that's when you can shift. You don't need a coach after that because you know exactly, where it's coming from, where it's stemming from, and you can then choose to make some changes in your life. So I believe that's one. Another thing that a lot of women should be talking about is owning their voice and using their voice and expressing themselves. So a lot of the ways in which we are operating today is at a space when we're not really being able to express ourselves authentically and being vulnerable. So being able to get rid of some of those armors and being yourself really can change the way people experience you or connect with you, and of course the way you impact others in your leadership or as your in your business as well. So those are a couple of things that I find are topics that people don't want to get into because they take you deeper.
And they take us deep into ourselves, perhaps to uncover facets of ourselves that we may not necessarily like to confront.
That's true. I think it's changing though. I have worked with some incredible women who are very curious about and ambitious. They want to make that change, they want more, and they want to actually do it by even going here. But however, the challenges, sometimes they beat themselves up so much because why am I not making this change? Why am I not keeping keeping to my word? Really pulling themselves down because probably they didn't, yeah, the week was tough, they're not able to do what they said they did. So a lot of us really are come in our own way, and I think that is something that we need to really work towards. So I feel that there are many aspects of what the conversations that we need to have with ourselves and others, but truly being in touch with our emotions of how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling this is a topic that people don't want to go into. And I feel that our emotions are an indicator of everything. So all we have to do is pay attention to them.
And that's also the reason why I do what I do, because I feel that through these conversations, we get to say it out in the open. And once you say it out in the open, people are more aware and willing to have those conversations. Because if no one talks about it, no one ever gets to be courageous or think differently about what they are going through in their lives.
Yeah, when you say think differently, I remember I started the year with a word that gave me a lot of energy. And this word was disruption. And I would say, I want to fall in love with disruption. Some of the narratives that I shift in my head throughout my life and my careers have been from old thinking to new thinking or flip my thinking. And I think that's the creative and innovative ways in which I'm able to view things differently or see the mountain for the way it is or look at it as one hill then another. So I think it's really about using different ways in which you view things that really shifts the way you approach it. And for me, that is also really an important aspect of how we show up today.
And to me, that phrase comes to mind when you say disruption, that reframing. We are always reframing how we look at the world, because if we can reframe it better, the outcomes, the results, whatever we expect, probably is going to come our way.
I agree. I think it's constantly paying attention to how what we're telling ourselves. It's usually, I always say, we're so good at telling stories, and sometimes we have a story on repeat. And until you have someone like a coach or a mentor or someone you look up to is able to show you a mirror and you're able to look at it from a different point of view, otherwise, that narrative continues to play in your mind and you'll play it on repeat. And so it becomes an automatic way in which we think, and then it gets installed as a belief as well. And then, of course, a lot of decisions are based on that. So that's the way the cycle goes. So I would say that this reframing, as you talked about, is really powerful ways in which we can things from a different perspective. And I think I did that throughout my life. It wasn't easy. For a long time, I kept saying, I'm alone. I had this, oh my God, this. And sometimes it comes back, this voice comes back to me, I feel alone. And that thought I'm able to shift and really I changed it to I work with amazing people. And so I realized that all around me that I have some incredible support. And the moment I step away and I start thinking I'm all alone in this, I can get into a hole for a long time, Krista. I can go into that hole and stay like a rabbit. I won't come out for a while. And so I think these don't serve us. So anytime we catch ourselves thinking with these beliefs that are not serving us, I think it's important to see how we can flip it or reframe it so that we can see the world differently. And I think it reminds me of this incredible way of looking at it. It's like life is happening for me and not to me. And so when I'm able to shift that, then I'm able to believe that everything is like an opportunity and there's a gift. So when I talk to my clients and they're talking about a tough situation, and once we finish that, and I ask them, so what have you learned from that? What's the gift from this? What's the lesson in this? And it's so hard to look for a gift through adversity or tough situations. But I think the biggest lessons are in that space when you fail, when you are struggling, when you're having tough experiences or tough conversations. the biggest experiences. And the most learning happens there. That's what I mean by courageous, is to be able to go into that space and move away from your comfort zone and actually have those conversations with yourself and others. So that's really meaningful for me to be there.
Where can people find or connect with you online, Farah, to further the conversation if they want to?
I would love to be connected on LinkedIn. It's a place where I really like to meet new people and engage. And of course, people can meet me, can also connect with me on my website. And I have a couple of downloads there, a couple of books that I wrote that they can go and get to know me a lot more and then set up some time with me. So lovely to continue the conversation and see how we can go on this journey together. This reminds me of my whole life. It's really a beautiful journey.
So thank you, Farah. Thank you for making the time, spending the time in this interview, because I think more than just talking about the business and how you ended up being a coach and facilitator is also your life experiences. And I could see the way your eyes just had this beautiful glimmer when you're talking about MBA. I was like, I think you went back to that moment when you were either in the airport or when you were on your track. But it just showed me that those are the defining moments sometimes of our lives where we just remember those moments and really feel joyful, happy.
Thank you, Krista. It's been a pleasure being on your show. And I love the process that you have to have me on this show. So I love the pre conversations we had as well. It's very thoughtful and mindful. So thank you for having me.
Do you set your own agenda? Do you mark out time to connect with others for collaborations or projects that you want to be part of? Do you factor in playfulness in your day? At the heart of what we spoke about are choices and courage. What do you choose to do? Making a choice is about having the courage to do something different, unheard of, and probably a little scary. I made a choice to create this podcast so that you can get to hear the wonderful stories from Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia. And since the day I published my first episode, I have never looked back. Every other day, I am recommended to amazing women who are eager to share their best stories, struggles, and life lessons. And I'm just like you, learning every day. This week, I learned how to use a new editing software for this particular episode because the other software that I had used had revised some of its audio editing features. At first, I was upset. The software was familiar ground to me, but I said to myself, what's the gift and learning opportunity in this? I started learning how to use another software and discovered how much easier it was compared to the previous software. And that is why I say I'm always a better person of myself today than I was yesterday. I hope this shows you that we all have the capacity to learn and find wonderful gifts in our challenges. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app, or share this episode with a friend who needs to hear this message. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next Friday.